Hello there, Mr. Wilson here again for another episode of How Do I Help My Child With? And in this episode, we're going to look at subtracting integers. Now, some keywords here. Obviously, we're going to look at subtraction, we're going to look at column subtraction in particular, and we're going to look at exchanging in column subtraction. So, first things first, if you've not seen the previous, I think it was the first episode now on adding integers, just a quick note to say that an integer is just a whole number. So an example of an integer could be -2, or it could be 14, or 9,284. It could be any of these values, right? An integer is just a whole number. So nothing that has a decimal component or a part of a whole. Now, the most common method for subtracting is known as column subtraction. Now, this method should be familiar to your child from primary school, but it is something that is heavily used at secondary school as well as the standard method for subtraction. So, the best way to demonstrate a column subtraction is to look at an example. So, let's look at one together. So, this could be a very typical homework question for Key Stage 3 on column subtraction of integers. So it says complete the calculation below. What is the answer? So here the question would have been, what is 1758 take away 463? So students in secondary school would be expected to perform this calculation without a calculator. So they would need to have a method for subtracting without a calculator, and that method, of course, is column subtraction. So column subtraction works very similarly to column addition in that you work from right to left. So we're going to start on the ones column and then work our way to the left. And we would subtract the first value. We take the first value and subtract the second value away from it. So we do 8 take away 3, which is 5. And we write our answer here on this on the answer line. Now when we turn to the next column, so the tens column, I can't do 5 take away 6. That would lead to a negative value, and you can't have a negative value inside a number. So I couldn't just put -1 here inside the whole number. That doesn't really make much sense. So right now I can't perform that subtraction. If that ends up being the case, if you can't perform the subtraction because this number is smaller than this number, and when you subtract and you'd get a negative, what you have to do is look at the next column, in this case the hundreds column, and we are going to exchange, this is where that keyword comes in, exchange one of these hundreds, right? So this is what I'm doing. Now, this value here is 7 hundredths, okay? In other words, the number 700. I'm going to exchange it for 600s and 10 lots of 10. So 10 tens. The reason for this is because I can then swap the 700s for 600s and take those 10 tens, and instead of having 5 tens here, I'm now going to have 15 tens, because now I have 10 tens from the 700 plus the 600, which is the 700. So there has been no change to the subtraction. It is exactly the same value that it was originally. I've just exchanged 700 for 600s, which is why this value has gone from 7 to 6, and 10 tens, which is why this value has gone from being 5 to 15, because originally it was 5 tens, and now that there are 10 more of them, so it's 15 tens. Now, in the past, this has been referred to as borrowing, right? You borrow 100 here and you bring it back down. However, this term is now sort of outdated, because we now like to use the word exchange, because it sort of more demonstrates the idea that we are exchanging, like almost like currency, the value of 700. We're not borrowing. It implies that we're going to give it back, but we're not taking and then giving something back here. We're swapping out a value for other values to then make this subtraction possible. So that's why we use the word exchange, and maybe it's something you're not familiar with from your education. It was something that I was never sort of told when I was learning column subtraction. It was always borrow, or the borrow method, or borrowing one from the previous column and swapping it over, and all these other words, but we tend to use exchange now. Anyway, after I've exchanged these values, now I can perform this subtraction because 15 is bigger than 6. So now I can do 15 take away 6, which is going to give me 9. And then again, I carry on going to the left. So I do 6 take away 4, because remember this value is no longer 7, it's now 6. It's 600, so 6 take away 4 is 2. And then finally here, we've not got a value in this column here for this number, so it's just 1 take away 0 because there's nothing there, so this value is 1. So the answer is 1295. So again, just to recap, the column addition and column subtraction are almost identical to each other. Obviously one of them you're adding and the other you're subtracting, but the key difference here is that it will be more common to perform an exchange so that you're allowed to do a subtraction. That's quite common in the column subtraction method. The other version of exchanging for column addition is when you add the values up and it's greater than 10, so you have to write a 1 or a 2 in the next column. That is exchanging, but the other way, this is exchanging backwards. So it's quite an interesting idea, but possibly a term that you might have not heard of. Now, if you have any questions about anything that I have said in this video, then please let me know in the comments below, because that is a way for you to reach out and ask those questions. And there is absolutely no shame in ever asking a question about maths, right? The whole point of these videos is to make sure that we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, we're all understanding what's going on, what your child is learning, and so that you can get more involved in their learning and support them. And if that means you have to ask a question, even though you feel it's stupid, it might not be stupid, and actually it probably won't be, and probably other parents out there might have the same question. So you stepping up and asking that question is saved them almost from that sort of embarrassment that they were going to face. So do you not only yourself a favour but others a favour and ask those questions if you need to. But all I want to say is thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.